We have, as promised, Dr. Patel from Granite Bay Allergy.com in studio with us. Good morning, Doc.
Good morning.
I'm sure that was a very important thing for you to know to start off your morning, the history of Whitney Houston and Elvis, and they have same song titles but not covers.
Very important. Very important.
We got this email from Angela. You can email with questions, rad@radradio.com. Phone number is 888-989-9811. We did make sure everybody knew that you were going to be on the show. Did some social media posts. And Angela yesterday says, wow, I just saw the post on Facebook that Dr. Patel is coming to the show Thursday. I had no idea he was not only very smart, but incredibly handsome.
Back off, he's married.
I'm quickly feeling myself coming down with some sort of allergy to something. Anything. We thought it was a great time to have you back. We're, a week or so, a few days from spring. Now, springtime is what we used to call allergy season. Of course, now you can get allergies any time of the year, we realize. But is it even true? Are seasonal allergies real? Are people going to start suffering suddenly as things are growing and blossoming and blooming, whereas they weren't a month ago?
Oh, 100%. We know because, unfortunately, asthma attacks kick in and all of those seasonal maladies. For example, right now, trees are blossoming. Everyone tree allergies, windy days, all those things. It's just eyes, nose. It's horrible.
What are the most common things that people are like? Are there like three things that like the most common people are allergic to that are going to cause reactions?
I think right now it's like the oak tree, because there's a lot of oak trees out around this part. With cedar, cypress, those trees are big. Some molds are also up. A lot of the over-the-counter stuff can help though right now.
So that was going to be my follow-up. So for people that only suffer. And as a guy who's had allergies since he was a kid, I'm not demeaning it in any way. But if they only, quote, suffer, say March, April, May, or April, May, June, and it's watery eyes and the nose and everything, is it worth the time and effort? I guess it's a personal decision, right, to come see you. Or is it just like, are you going to say antihistamine, nasal spray, and then when you're better, you're better?
Pretty much. I'm like, if it's mild and if over-the-counter medications and washes work, then do that. I always tell people, first thing to try, nose washes, those Neomed sinus washes. And then
those are fun.
Yeah, the waterboard yourself kind of a thing.
Oh, yeah, Dawn didn't use it on her face, though. It was a whole other place she put it. So. Now, Brandon, to that point, you were mentioning, I think, earlier this week, is this kind of what happened to you when you went to see Dr. Patel? Is he said, yeah, you've got some spring allergies, but you can just deal with it over the counter?
Yeah, I found out that I had mostly like dust mites and grass allergies, and that over-the-counter stuff would help. And I totally spaced on that because I got tested last year, and I thought, oh, you know what, I should just start taking my Zyrtec again. And fortunately, that has helped because I've had those boogers building up that are actually really painful.
Because you were mentioning that, and it sounded like you thought it was even maybe a little worse this year.
It does seem like it's a little bit worse.
Can that happen? Can they get progressively worse?
Yeah, usually, you've heard of people who get stung the first time by a bee or something, and then they were like, oh, I broke on hives all over. And then the next time they get stung, it's like, oh, my throat closed up, I passed out or something worse. So yeah, not that extreme, but environmental allergies, same thing. It's like every year they can progressively get worse.
And so there is a point at which somebody could make the calculation of, okay, this is the worst they've ever been. This is miserable, even though it's only 3 or 4 months a year, and you could treat that.
Yeah. So to go back to what you were saying earlier, the nose washes, the nose sprays, nasal steroids, and antihistamine like Zyrtec, Allegra, or Zysol, those work great. And then, if that doesn't work, then we treat it. Then we say, all right, we go to the next step.
And the process is, first thing you got to do is figure out specifically what they're allergic to. Mm-hmm. And then you put together a plan of how often they need to come in to essentially, is this the dumbed down version? You expose them in small quantities to what they're exposed to so that their body builds up an immunity, or is that stupid? That's exactly it.
Exactly.
And then hopefully if it's only spring allergies, by the next spring, their reactions are much more muted, if not non-existent.
Yeah, correct. So we basically, under their skin, small injections of exactly what they're allergic to. So technically it's not medicine, right? It's just the same pollens or same animals or the same molds or whatever you're allergic to injected under your skin. Small quantities, build up your immunity, and then the next spring, hopefully you're like 50% better, at least 50% better.
So thanks to Dr. Patel, I found out I'm allergic to like basically all animals. But before I knew that, when it started rearing its ugly head, it would happen around this time. And it would almost be, I mean, it was bad. It would even be hard to breathe. Like I had to go to the hospital and they give me an inhaler and they're like, oh, yeah, this must be a seasonal thing for you. And it was like, was that the beginning, like attack of being allergic to animals? I was thinking about that the other day.
Yeah, I mean,
Like-
yeah, exactly. It's like,
Okay.
now, you had, last year you had 10 allergies, this year you have 11,
Yeah.
next year you have 12, and so forth.
But when it was just happening around the time of years when things were blooming, you just equate it to that. So it's kind of like if things continue with you after the season, you might want to go get checked.
Yeah, it's all cumulative. The way I
Yeah.
see it is like it all stacks up, right? Like, so, if you pet dogs in winter, you only have like tree allergies, you're probably fine. But now you combine the tree pollen allergy with the dog, now it all stacks up, and now it becomes more symptomatic asthma attack or so forth.
Yeah.
So
makes
one
sense.
of the most surprising things for a lot of people every time we have you on or we talk about you is the idea that food allergies are all very often not food allergies. They're allergies to other things that they might not even be aware of. Can you give us the brief description of how? Because once we announced you were going to be on, we start getting all these food allergy questions.
And beer.
And beer. I think that was like the very first email we ever got when Dr. Patel was on. Well, of course, this is what we get from our listeners. But what's a short explanation for why? Actually, a lot of times it's not the food, but people say, but every time I eat shellfish, I break out, so it's got to be shellfish, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that happens, like, adult allergy, there's always pretty much another cause. So the one you mentioned, shellfish, is if you have worsening dust mite allergy. So kind of like Don was saying, initially maybe a little bit of dusting, some sneezing, whatever. A few years later, now you're like sneezing, watery eyes. Next year, acting up, my asthma's acting up a little bit. Now, as your dust mite allergy gets worse, all of a sudden you start cross-reacting with crustaceans and mollusks, shellfish. And then when you eat those, your body's like, oh, she's eating a whole bunch of dust mites.
So you go back to
react.
treating the dust mites.
Exactly.
So that eventually they can actually go back to eating the shellfish.
Yes.
All right, phone number is 888-989-9811, and we got a lot of emails here, rad@radradio.com. This one's from Krista.
Hi, Krista.
Says, last May I was diagnosed with a shellfish and mollusk allergy after a trip to the ER. I was experiencing symptoms that included an itchy mouth and a swollen uvula. Oh, dear.
Oh, what's an uvula?
Is that up here?
The little dumbbell.
I was in a whole other region.
Punching bag thing
Okay.
in the back of your throat.
After that, I saw my primary. And I got a question for you before I finish this. Is an allergy specialist the same as you?
Yeah, so a little bit. I'm allergy, immunology, and asthma.
So you can call yourself an allergy specialist and
Yes.
not be an immunologist.
Yeah, a lot of people practice just allergy.
Like you're better, right?
It's okay. No,
Yeah, it's
like
okay to say.
You choose what you want, right? If you the specialty is allergy, immunology, but you can choose to focus on
All right.
some.
All right.
more.
You're
She
more
sa-
educated.
She says after that I saw my primary and an allergy specialist, not as good as Dr. Patel, that's
Right,
down in the
yeah.
email, but whatever. I was diagnosed using both an allergy blood test and a skin prick test, and both test results indicated that a reaction was present. So is avoiding the allergens the only answer? I miss sushi restaurants and the carefree way I was able to dine out in the past.
Now, this is exactly what you said, Rob. It's sounds like dust mite crustacean mollusk syndrome.
So how come the test that this allergy specialist did? What does she mean when she says it indicated a reaction was present? Does this specialist just not know?
No, so blood tests are not that accurate. It's blood tests, like saying it's like
I
a
tried that in
50%.
court once and was told that's not true. I'm sorry. So you're gleaning. So he said a blood test and a skin prick test, not good enough.
The skin pricks are pretty good. The negatives are very good. Like a negative are like in the 90s, upper 90s for true negatives. Positives are hit or miss. Like a blood test, 50%, a skin test, maybe 70, 80%, but a lot of false positives. So you got to go with what the person says. If they said, hey, I ate it all my life and now I'm having problems, highly unlikely to develop a new food allergy as an adult.
We got this question from Adrian. Says, is everyone who has a food allergy at risk of anaphylaxis and death? And if not, how do you know who is or isn't?
Yes, and then testing and history, basically. It's like...
What an anaphylactic shock, which is what he's referring to, right? What exactly is that?
So that's like the worst allergic reaction where, your throat swells up, your heart actually constrict, like the blood vessels to your heart constrict. You can have heart attacks, your lungs fill up with fluid, your blood pressure drops, your brain doesn't get fluid, you pass out.
Jesus.
So
It's awful.
Organs, yeah. It's
You-
well, death is...
how likely
Yeah.
is it that would be the very first reaction you would have to something? You would have warning signs, wouldn't you?
Yeah, usually for it depends. Like if it's like a stinging insect, like a bee or something, maybe in the past you got stung and you had whole body hives. Then you're like, oh, well, the next time you get stung, it's going to be a problem. If you got stung and it's just local, like you have a big swollen arm or something, but it didn't spread anywhere else, then usually 90% of the time it's going to remain the same.
So bee stings could make me have big swollen arms? That's kind of worth it. That's all right.
Sting on the air.
Your throat closes up. You get out of breath. All this horrible things. I think I might be allergic to patent leather pumps because that's exactly how I feel whenever I see them. Just don't make me look.
No, this is like good. I never realized. So basically, what you're telling someone is if you get stung the first time and you have a big reaction, you need to beware because the next time it could be an even bigger reaction.
Yeah, if it's local, like if it doesn't spread beyond where you got stung, we call those large locals, and they 90% of the time they remain large locals. If you get stung, even the size is not even that important. Like if you get stung on the wrist, on the left wrist, and it's small, but then on the right arm you break out in some hives in a non-contiguous region, we call that systemic, and then that's higher risk.
We're with Dr. Patel from Granite Bay Allergy. Phone number is 888-989-9811. Hey, Sean.
Good morning.
Hey, go ahead.
Morning.
So, Doc, I've been on Kenalog. I'm sure you're familiar with Kenalog.
Yes.
I've been on it now for, almost 16 years. I used to get the shot once or twice a year, not a big dose. Now I get it 4 times a year, and I probably it's a giant syringe full of Kenalog. What are my risks? There's really nothing out there that takes care of my allergies other than Kenalog. And I'm just wondering what my risks are long term.
So long-term steroids are bad. In the past they used to give a lot of Kenalog because one shot or even maybe once a year is not too bad. Big things are like all steroid problems, bone loss, diabetes, cataracts, glaucoma.
Jesus.
All those things are associated with steroids. Cushing syndrome. You're just basically converting all your muscle to fat. All that is associated with steroids. So not a good idea. And really, this is the exact thing that immunotherapy does, right? You identify what you're allergic to, get the shots for it, and then your allergies pretty much don't exist.
So in theory, he's wrong in that there's nothing else that will relieve his
Correct.
symptoms.
Yeah.
That's why you exist.
Pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much.
Professionally. I mean, you got a family and all that other stuff.
He's just never been exposed to good care that was letting him know places like that exist, like you exist.
Yeah.
I hate when that happens with people. I mean, I see it all the time and you hear about it. You're like, oh my God.
Especially 14 years of this.
Yeah, that's just
a
awful.
lot.
Poor guy. Go see Dr. Patel.
And that's why we get such a reaction when we have you on. 'Cause, these things are so relatable. So many people suffer from these things, and they have no idea how many of. I mean, look, sometimes you've had to say, yeah, you're screwed, but that's very rare.
Right.
We got this from Nathan.
Hi,
Says,
Nathan.
I have what I would consider to be an abnormal fish allergy. I'm perfectly fine eating shellfish, all raw fish, and cooked freshwater fish. However, anytime I have cooked saltwater fish, that's when I have issues with my throat closing up, making it hard to swallow, and there's tension in my back. What could be causing this?
So there may be something else in play. It's fish is fish. Like whether it's cooked or raw, there's really no difference in terms of what protein you're allergic to in that fish. So there's something that's being missed in what's going on. So that's going to take a lot more digging to figure out what's going on.
But you have the right shovel.
Yeah. Exactly.
We got this from Bethy.
Hi, Bethy.
Says, I've been advised by my doctor that I'm allergic to potatoes. When I peel them, I break out in a rash. When I was eating them, the only way I could explain it is I had something in me that was fighting to get out. Is there anything that I can do for this?
What?
Fighting to get out.
Like, I guess she did eat them, and then, I don't know, if she had some intestinal issues or something, or she felt like, remember the movie Alien outside of her stomach? That's awful.
Yeah,
Is this a common one, potatoes?
It's not common, and this could be something else that maybe the potato is contaminated with, or some kind of intolerance going on. But it doesn't sound like an allergy. Again, this one's another one that we need. There's always an answer, right? What is that? Every problem has a solution, right? Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Well, I mean, and our doctors, like your primary, they don't know everything. Like that's what specialists are for, right? So like they may think that, but go get another look somewhere else because that's unacceptable to be allergic to potatoes.
And good time, good time to point out, yeah, really. And it's because some doctors, I know this is going to shock some people, but some doctors, they have like what's called a God complex, and they think they can't be wrong. And so a lot of people are going, well, my doctor won't refer me. You take self-referrals, correct?
Correct.
And walk-ins and actual referrals and everything. So it's granitebayallergy.com. We got this story from John.
Hi, John.
It says, my wife never had an issue with dairy until a few years ago. Began to get horrible stomach cramps and diarrhea, and we narrowed it down to dairy. She has had to cut out dairy completely. She orders cheese-free pizza.
Oh.
We've become convinced over the years the allergy is related to a milk protein. Any idea if this could be the case, and are you able to help?
It kind of sounds like lactose intolerance. I don't know if they've looked into that first, like remove lactose versus all dairy. And then after that, yeah, you have to test for it, but it's once again highly unlikely to develop a new allergy to dairy. Either it's a lactose thing or something else connected to that.
And it's natural human behavior for them to do what they did. The self-diagnosis deduction, but you only know what you know. And since they're not immunologists, they go, oh yeah, it's dairy. Whereas you're saying, probably something else.
The easiest thing is what happens is people, they have a problem and they look back, what did I just do? And then they blame that, right? It's like, you always hear about penicillin allergy. People are like, oh, I have a penicillin allergy. Oh, I have a drug allergy. You're like, well, the virus probably would have made you break out in a rash. You just happen to take something with it. Now you blame it, which is usually wrong.
And I'm not going to say this is what I'm about to say is their case, but for other people, this could be the case where you think for a long time I thought it was gluten because I would get break out in a rash and it was animals, right? But I'm thinking it's gluten, and your mind can play crazy games with you. I have literally had zero reaction to gluten ever since I found out I have no intolerance, right? I am not allergic to gluten. So, the mind can do some crazy things.
We got this one from Amanda. You mentioned beer earlier. Poor Amanda says, ever since I went through cancer treatment that put me into menopause, I've been having allergic reactions to alcohol. I break out in hives from my elbows all the way up to my face. It started out with wine, and now it's with any alcohol. Any ideas what it could be?
Oh.
No, help her.
This is worse than the potatoes.
This is bad. This is bad.
Yeah, so that's chemo does different things. So that's, again, another hard one.
Oh.
You got to figure out what kind of chemo, what happened. Was there some kind of... Well, it's complicated.
So is this a rare example of where you could develop maybe not a food allergy later in life, but an allergy as a result of the chemo that is affected by certain foods, in this case you drink?
Yeah, I wouldn't say allergy, more like an intolerance or sensitivity, because you can have sulfite sensitivities that goes across all alcohol, and sulfites can do usually flushing, not so much hives, but it can cause like vasodilations, kind of like when you always hear about alcoholics who pass out outside, or like in Arizona, they pass out outside. Their skin's super dilated, all the blood, and then the sun, and they come in, their temperature's like 103, 104, 105 degrees because all their blood's just heating up. They're being cooked.
Phone number is 888-989-9811 with Dr. Patel from Granite Bay Allergy. Hello there, Cassie.
Hi, it's Casey.
Hi, Casey.
My 3-year-old son has a severe peanut allergy. His allergist prescribed Auvi-Q for him, and she said that this was specifically what he needed and that it needed to be ordered through a specialty pharmacy. And it's running us $50 per refill, and we're, refilling it as often as we can so we can keep them pretty much everywhere around the house and at the grandparents' house. But his primary care physician, when I asked for a new script from them, they wrote for an EpiPen, which happens to be a $5 copay. And it's all the same. It's the 0.15 milligrams per 15 milliliters. I'm wondering if there's some sort of issue, like why his allergist would be so specific about the Auvi-Q.
So they both work the same. They're both 0.15 milligrams of the epinephrine. The difference is ease of use, right? The Auvi-Q is like an automatic, one of those AEDs. It talks to you. It's easier for especially grandparents or people not familiar with how to use those auto injectors. They work the exact same. So, if you're comfortable with your grandparents or other caretakers using a regular epinephrine pen, the EpiPen, and they're trained on them, that's fine. But really, there's no difference in which one you use. It's just ease and less mistakes with the RVQ.
I'm curious, Doc, now that we're literally almost 2 years, on Saturday, since lockdowns began and COVID hit and the virus hit, and we've had 2 years of people not leaving their houses or very little or not going to their offices and completely changing their environments. Have you noticed anything related to that? And can behavioral changes like that cause things like allergies or other immuno issues as a result of I'm suddenly going to or staying in one place too long or other places not enough?
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen a lot is people, because of lockdown, they've been at home longer, so then they can't go places, so they end up staying outside more. They play in the yard more, which is good stuff. But then, obviously they get more allergies from that. Kids actually, because of lack of exposure, right? They're the ones that matter. Besides the social part, where now they I have a 4-year-old, and now she's been 2 years in a house.
Half her life.
Yeah, and half her life. So I was like, I was convinced something's wrong with her. And then now she's out. She's meeting other kids, going to preschool.
So good.
And now I'm like, oh. That's what the problem was. She doesn't meet humans.
She's fine.
There's no people.
We got this one's from Rose.
Hey, Rose.
She says, my boyfriend Matt recently moved down from Oregon. Matt suffers from interfaced dermatitis and plaque psoriasis. It's been a roller coaster in terms of how bad it's been since moving, and we've recently found some success with a vegan diet supplemented with Maptrition, which is another one of our advertisers, Greg from trainwithmap.com. Prior medical advice mentioned red meat and various wheats often contributing to severity. My questions are as follows. His health insurance has lapsed. We've discovered the slow pace of Medi-Cal and such. What is an approximate out-of-pocket cost estimate for coming in and running tests to see if there are further aggravators for Matt's skin? Does your practice accept payment plans? Are you able to write prescriptions, as most over-the-counter creams for psoriasis are often not effective? So there's the three of them.
So the big thing here, unfortunately, is that psoriasis is not allergic, right? Psoriasis is on the autoimmune side, so that's going to be more dermatology. There are dietary changes that can help, but again, you can't test for those. Those are things based on what the dermatologist feels. Some different dermatologists, different ways of practicing. Some say you should remove things, some say you shouldn't, but really it all comes down to treatment. There's not that much from the allergy and the food side that we can offer. I would save your money. It's not really worth delving into the allergy side.
Is that the same thing for something called Spongiotic Dermatitis?
No. Spongiotic dermatitis is different. Now, Spongiotic dermatitis is one of 5 things. It's either allergic contact dermatitis to like a chemical, like either creams or detergents or something touching you. It could be atopic dermatitis, like regular eczema, allergic skin from like environmental things. Something called nummular eczema, little coin-shaped lesions all over your body. They're very itchy again. Bug bites, but you kind of know if you're being eaten alive by bugs. I hope.
Well, so what's the
last one is something called an id reaction, which is like a wastebasket term. Like we don't know what it is. It's some kind of weird immune thing.
So, whatever Andrew has sounds terrible. He says, I have a severe case of Spongiotic Dermatitis. I've had it for years since I was about 14, and it has slowly progressed ever since then. In the last 7 years, it has become something that is just out of control. It covers 95% of my body and is spreading even further. It's on my face now. They biopsied me several times and haven't been able to find a cure. Topical steroids I've been prescribed and used have made the dermatitis explode and become exponentially worse and scars me for months. I scratched myself to bleeding everywhere. I'm covered in scars and scabs. My skin is dry and flaky everywhere. Is there any hope for me?
Yeah, so that, unfortunately, I feel bad. But this, definitely. Spongiotic dermatitis is, pretty much, you never say 100%, but 99% of the time we can figure out what that is.
That one is right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Oh my God, that's such good news for him.
Actually, most of my referrals from dermatology are for Spongiotic dermatitis.
We got this one from Raquel.
Hey, Raquel.
It says, for the last 10 years now, I've had an issue where if anything rubs against my skin, I break out in hives or welts. It can be anything, from putting the grocery bag around my arms, and once it starts rubbing, welts will pop up. Even touching cardboard after I do, my skin feels like it's burning, turns red, and then I get a rash. if anything rubs against my skin, I get some sort of rash, welt, or hives. Even if my husband lays on my chest, the fact that his hair rubbing on my chest turns my chest red.
Whoa.
Yeah, so this, we actually call that either dermatographic urticaria or pressure-induced urticaria. So that's a version of what we call inducible urticaria. So they used to be called physical urticarias. Essentially, it's like some kind of physical manipulation, something physical causes them to happen. But yeah, very treatable.
Hello there,
Very treatable.
Chuck. Go ahead.
Hello, thanks, Rad Family. Thanks for having the doctor on, too.
Yeah.
Ironically, listening to the show today, my 10-month-old broke out in hives really bad last night, and pretty miserable for her and the family, of course. And nothing has changed in her diet, but her formula that we use does have dairy products in it, and I had bought from a very trusted source a dry milk additive too to kind of just boost her calorie count, because the doctor was saying that she was a little underweight, so we were just kind of boosting her count up. And so with that dry milk plus her formula, this is the only thing that she's been introduced new into her diet.
So the cause and effect for people who can't hear, because that was a rough connection there. 10-month-old, dry milk additive, it sounds like, or supplement added in, and now suddenly breaking out. So is that the simplistic human thing of, oh, it's that dry milk additive? Or
Exactly, most likely. So if her formula, as I understood, already had milk in it, adding more milk is not going to make her break out. So then you have to look for something else, right? If the product did not have milk in it, and then you add milk and she's never had it before, then that's different. Then it could be an allergy to that. So, but if it's just more of the same thing, no.
in general with kids, is it better just in general for anybody anywhere in the country to attack what seems like allergies sooner or wait a while? I mean, how early in life should parents jump to, okay, I'm taking them to an allergy specialist?
Food allergy, the earlier the better. We always say early introduction is the most important thing. Start at 4 months of age, as long as they're not high risk, meaning they don't have eczema or family member with allergic disease. You want to start introducing all the allergenic foods. The big landmark study, published in, 2019 by Perkins, it basically showed if you start early introduction of peanuts at 4 months of age to a year, you can reduce peanut allergy by almost 95%, which is insane.
That was the study that was footnoted. Rob has been saying this for 20 years on the radio, but doesn't get any credit for it.
I have some friends that introduce their kids from a young age, the minute they can eat, to all foods that adults eat that was safe for them, right?
Yeah.
They have had zero issues. And then they have friends that have every allergy known to man, right?
Yeah,
because they were kept from a lot of things growing up because the parents thought it wouldn't be good. So I was like...
So what you're saying is having people on lockdown may not be the answer to everything. I know you...
well, I'm saying, So remember our parents, right? Our parents' generation, they have no allergies. They're like,
none.
Why? Because whatever mom and or grandma or grandpa were eating, chew it up, spit it out, and feed it to the kid, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, that's why whenever my baby nephew is with me, I like to cook him a rack of ribs. I leave it at the table, and I tell him, go for it. I turn all the lights off, leave him with the toaster, and I just walk out.
Good. So why are nuts so prevalent with allergies? What is in nuts that makes people flare up so bad?
It's actually not more common than other things, right?
We just hear about it more.
Yeah, you just hear about it. It's peanut is a lot, but peanut is technically a legume, right? So it's in the bean family. But other tree nuts are common, no more or less than other allergies. There's a good website actually called the FAIR website that lists 7, used to be 7, now it's 8, sesame's part of it, as the most common allergies.
I know your manager nurse is screaming at me right now because it's 8:46 and I had to get you out of here by 8:45 because you have patients. So thank you, Dr. Patel, for being here.
Of course.
He is online. You can make appointments right there online at granitebayallergy.com.